Hey guys, I'm not quite sure what time it is. It is sometime in the evening on March 2nd, and I haven't really been able to start this vlog yet because I hadn't really started my first Wheel of D20 book for the month yet, but I have at this point read over a third of it. I'm currently working on The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This, for my Wheel of D20 prompts for this month, was for a poll pick. I had basically picked 4 books that I had wanted to read in February that were either romance or by Black authors. I think specifically I picked the Black authors ones. Also, if you hear squeaking, Oscar is squeaking his toy. You can tell I'm very tired because I can't even remember what my dog's name is. Anyway, so I did end up getting through, like I said, a third of this. I picked it up a little bit during the end of my work day and started working on it more this evening. And so far I like it. I wouldn't say necessarily that it makes the most sense for this to be in verse. I don't know why exactly it was written in verse. The main story basically focuses on a young man named Michael, and you're basically watching him as he grows up, learning about becoming gay, and also he is mixed. I believe he is Jamaican and Greek, but he is also living in England. I think he lives in the Brighton area. Basically, you're learning about him as he struggles with not only his sexual identity, but his identity in general, because he grows up without his father being a massive figure. He's raised by a single mom. He has a half sibling whose father is also not really in the picture ever. And so you're starting to like just piece things together like as he's starting to grow up. Currently where I'm at is he's about 16 years old and he's just returning from a trip to Greece that he took with his mom, sister, his best friend, and everybody. And Oscar is desperately vying for my attention, so let me show you guys how big this monstrosity is. This is my baby. He is now a little more than 3 months. He knows I'm talking to a camera, so he obviously wants attention because he's like, Mom, stop talking to that stupid camera, pay attention to me. I will let you guys know though when I get done with the Black Flamingo, because I'm gonna get through a lot more of it tonight before I go to bed and basically be finishing it up tomorrow, and I'll give you guys a more in-depth rating and kind of my really big thoughts on this. I think this is a very good young adult contemporary, but I feel like it's not my most favorite thing in the world as of yet, but I'm only just now about a third of the way in, so we'll kind of see how that changes as I get through the rest of it and continue my reading for today, because I think I'm gonna get to like almost the end by the end of the night. So my mind will probably change between now and then. Hello everybody, you're currently sitting with me on my bedroom floor. If you hear speaking, it is my husband playing a game with his friend. But I wanted to come on and quickly talk to you guys real quick because I've made some progress with stuff. First of all, I did finish The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This was for my poll pick for Wheel of D20. Really liked this a lot. I wasn't using this for really anything else other than that, but I had some kind of like structural and just overall writing style issues with it. I gave it a 3-star. I think overall the representation was absolutely wonderful. I loved seeing a lot of the conversation be brought up about being Black and gay, and also in a lot of ways about specifically being mixed and how there are issues with that, and then also getting into drag and some of the issues surrounding around that with being a Black person and kind of the intersectionality with it. So the representation was not something that I had any issues with, obviously, because for one, I am not somebody of those, you know, areas of life. I'm not Black. I am not necessarily gay. I'm pan. I am not mixed in any way, and I am not a part of the drag community. So I found that the elements within that were totally fine. I feel like that they, you know, represented a perspective that I was not, you know, already a part of. So I thought that was very fun. I did like the overall idea of watching the character basically not only learn about themselves and kind of establish very early on that they are gay, but then going through and exploring themselves in terms of what it is that they want to do with their life, how they get involved with things like poetry and the drag community. The thing though I really seemed to have an issue with is that this book felt way too much like it was trying to be like an Elizabeth Acevedo or an Ellen Hopkins style of writing, and it really did not match that. That is very likely something that is of my own kind of bias in sense, because I think that both Elizabeth Acevedo and Ellen Hopkins have very particular styles of writing when it comes to writing in verse, and I adore the both of them. They are some of my favorite authors when it comes to writing in verse. And I felt too that the way that this was constructed was very quick. Each of the chapters, especially the early portions of the book, deal with significant events in the main character Michael's life up until they go to university. University is where we see a bulk of the story take place because it is a very formative time, which makes sense. This is more of a young adult kind of story. It focuses on a character that is kind of coming around to themselves and their identity. But the thing with that is that there's a lot of things that were touched on, especially over the course of Michael's high school life, that I think really drastically affected a lot of the things that happened when he went to university that I wish had been explored a little bit more. There is a, part in this book where there is a character who tends to show some homophobia that I wish would have been explored a little bit more. It does get resolved in some capacity later on, but not in a very effective way that I feel like makes the most amount of sense, in the sense that I feel like it just kind of gets pushed under the rug. It doesn't really get brought up again. And there's a lot of other, internalized things about racism and homophobia and other things involving that. So I don't know. I felt like that this book was just way too quick. I feel like it was really rushed. There were a lot of opportunities for this to be exploring some topics more in depth. I think in general, the issue I have with it is the way that this was structured, where it was completely in free verse poetry. And while I love free verse poetry by itself, it is something that I find a lot of fun reading, like I said, with like Elizabeth Acevedo and Alan Hopkins. I think that for this story in particular, it did not work because the way that the poems were constructed did not give us any clear discussion of things. At least with things like Elizabeth Acevedo, when things are written in verse, they are very profound, and the poems themselves are in a sense like prose, where you read them and they feel like you are reading a fictional story. It just happens to be in a poetry format. This felt like it was supposed to be in just poetry format and wasn't really given the length to be able to feel like prose. I feel like that there's a very clear distinction in terms of style that I don't care for between this and the ones I love by like Elizabeth Acevedo and Alan Hopkins. I think that in general, this book by Dean Atta is a good idea in concept, a good idea in terms of some of the discussions that were brought up, had some very profound lines throughout it. But I feel like overall, in terms of my connection to it, I did not connect in the sense where I wasn't trying to connect with the main character because we have very different identities, but I didn't connect in the sense that I didn't feel like the story itself and the following of the character was done well. I do not think that the story was told in the way it needed to be, and I think that this would have fared better if it was similar to, I think, more along the lines of the first thing that comes to my mind, Felix Ever After by Case and Callender. Not exactly 100% the same kind of story, but a very similar story of about a black teen getting into university that is searching and figuring out their identity. And this book, I think, caters more to this overwhelming idea of wanting to be so much about spoken word and about poetry that it relies too heavily on it. There are some very beautiful poems that I think are wonderful to keep in because they were written by the character, or, by the character in a sense. But I think that this book would have been better if it had been more of a fiction style prose and then sprinkled in the poems that Michael writes. I think that that would have made things a lot better, and it would have made the story feel like I could actually connect with it and feel like I was able to enjoy it. So for that one, 3 out of 5 stars. Not awful, but definitely not one of my more favorite YA contemporaries. And I am a little disappointed in that, just because I feel like I had set a lot of high expectations for that one, seeing that I had a lot of people tell me that it was one of their favorites. But I think for me, it came down to the overall construction of the story itself and the writing style, which I did not gel with, which is okay, because I still loved the idea of it in by itself, and I loved the representation within it, and I think that it came up with some very good discussions that should be further explored in my own thoughts and my own, ways, by connecting with people of these identities and getting some of their perspectives on it. So definitely had some food for thought within it. Then I did sit and read the entirety of Attack on Titan, the first volume by Hajime Isayama. This is for one of my other D20 prompts, which is to read a manga. And this also was for Greek Godathon, which was to read a short book for the prompt Hermes. So I did earn my first 5 points for Greek Godathon, which is super exciting. And I have half of my D20 reads for this month already completed, which is also super awesome. And it's only the 3rd day of the month. I'm very proud of that. But I actually ended up rating this 5 out of 5 stars because I think, especially when I think about a first volume of a manga, what I look for is, do I get sucked in immediately to the overall story? Do I feel like that there's a very good basis for, especially in this case, a long-lasting manga series? This is a series that has at least 30 volumes, so if I'm gonna get invested in it, I want to be invested as soon as possible so that I feel like by the end of the time I have with it, when I get to the last volume, I feel like I've had a bit of a payoff. And I will say this was absolutely amazing. I really see a lot of the appeal that people have for this series in the manga sense and the anime. And truth be told, I really want to watch the anime now because some of these scenes in here I would love to see be done animated because they look amazing just from the manga art, and I would just love to see how the characters come to life in the anime. So if you don't know anything about this, Attack on Titan basically is a manga series that follows a civilization thousands of years in the future. And at one point, their society was ravaged by these monsters called the Titans. They had basically eradicated a lot of the Earth's population, causing them to create this small walled-off city that is essentially supposed to keep the Titans out. And for about 100 years, this city stands as is. Unfortunately, the Titans do breach the outer wall of this area and do kill a lot of people, including one of our main characters' mother. His name is Eren. From the very beginning, you learn that Eren wants to be a part of what is called the Survey Corps. It basically is a group of soldiers that go outside of the walled city to try to see if they can keep an eye on what the Titans are doing, if they're getting closer, and attack and kill any that may be coming too close to the city. And you learn that part of the reason that the Titans actually come to this area is because there was a group of Survey Corpsmen who were attacked by a Titan, or they went to attack a Titan and basically got a lot of themselves killed. Basically, though, these Titans ravaged the city by breaching the outer wall, and then it jumps 5 years ahead where Eren is much older. He is actually graduating from the military academy that many of the people that he lives with in this town go to. Basically, all the survivors at this point have moved into one of the inner rings of this city where about 20% of their population they were eaten, they were killed, various things. But Eren is one of the top 10 military students, and so he does have the ability to then also pick where he wants to go. If he wants to be a part of basically the wall watchers, if he wants to be a part of the military police, or if he wants to be a part of the Survey Corps. And he still wants to be a part of the Survey Corps. And in the first volume too, you learn that there's a young girl that he's grown up with called Mikasa, who seems to play a character where she must have some kind of a debt to the family of Eren, because his mother tells her to watch out for him and take care of him and keep him from getting into trouble. There's not really any clear idea as to why that is. You just know off the top of your head, and you realize that she's not his sibling, but she's a very close friend, or maybe even a cousin of some kind, because she's taken care of by his family in some capacity. But she promises his mother to take care of him and watch out for him, and so she sticks tight with him. And and she does not allow him to get into any kind of danger because she did, like I said, promise his mother. But unfortunately, at one point, they end up being separated because she's being pulled to go to a different area to protect the city after the Titans come by again to basically attack this city. And the first volume ends where Eren actually sacrifices himself in order to save a friend of his named Armin, who they have been, since they were kids, talking about this idea of going outside the wall, because nobody other than the Survey Corps in this world have been outside of the walls for about 100 years. So there's a lot of things that people don't know about the outside world. There's a scene where Armin, it's a flashback, but he brings Eren this book that his grandfather had that talked about the sea and how, the sea had all this salt. And Armin and Eren kind of talk about how it's not possible because if the people of their city knew about that, the government would basically have, used the sea. They would have had a lot of, use of it. But for some reason, they don't know about this. They don't know what the sea is. They don't know that it's a big, massive ocean area. And so there's a lot of questions I have in terms of the reasons behind why all this stuff is not being talked about. Why is it that like certain landforms and that oceans, for instance, are not talked about? Like, why is it that the government is not allowing these things to be taught to the kids? Is it because they don't want to encourage people to go outside the wall? Why is it only the Survey Corps that go outside of the wall? There's a lot of very interesting questions that pop up throughout this. And I think it was very awesome. It was very jam-packed. There's a little bit of information in terms of some of the weaponry that are used by the military, which is really cool. It's basically like these fan-powered blades that essentially are used to try to kill the Titans, but it's very hard to kill the Titans. There's only like one way to really kill them, and Oscar's trying to get here in the bedroom. So I think we're gonna see a little Oscar here in a second. Hi, Bubba. Hi. You wanna come say hi? You could hear me talking in here, so he wanted to come see what's going on. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Papa. Yes, my good boy. You gonna say hi to all the peoples on YouTube? Yuck. Yuck. Say hi. Come here. Oh, look. Oscar. Hey. Yuck. Yuck. This is you. Nope, he wants to chomp on Mom. He thinks it's playtime. Hi, baby. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun reading this first volume, and I have the first 5 or 6, so I am interested in reading the rest of them. So 2 of my Wheel of D20 books are done. My first book for Greek Godathon is also done. And then tomorrow I'm going to be starting They Went Left, which is another Wheel of D20 book, but is also another book for Greek Godathons. Okay guys, it is Sunday, March 6th. It's almost 8:30. I'm basically halfway through They Went Left, and I'm really liking it a lot, but I'm going to hold off on any thoughts for this vlog until I get done with it. But I will say that I'm basically hoping for a happy ending. I don't know if I'm going to get that, but I'm hoping for a happy ending. I think it's very well done. I feel like this is honestly going to be one of my favorite books of the year so far, because from the very beginning I was just completely enraptured in it. So I think that this is going to be a very, very high rating for me. But I am planning on finishing this today and then working on some other stuff. This will be the last book for my Wheel of T20 books until not this coming week, but the week after, when it comes to the mini magical readathon, because one of the books that I have for that readathon is my other Wheel of D20 book, which is The Last Wish. So I have a little bit more than a week basically between finishing this and getting started with that. So basically I'm not going to be filming for a little more than a week, but to you guys it's not going to matter because it's just going to be like the next clip. But anyway, I will come back when I have finished this, and we'll talk about kind of my thoughts on it. And I'm excited though. I think it's going to end up going super well, but we'll see. Hey guys, it is about 4:35 in the evening. I am currently on Princess's Sprints, which if you don't follow Princess at Castle Library, you definitely should. She's awesome. But I did finally finish They Went Left. This took me a lot longer today than I wanted to because I got very distracted over the course of the day. You guys, oh my God, this has got to be my favorite book of the year so far. 5 out of 5 stars. Like, there is no way that I will be able to recover fully from this book. It is so fucking good. It is so heartbreaking though. Like, I just, from beginning to end, absolutely loved this. There is no doubt in my mind that this is gonna be one of like probably my top 5 of the year. It is so good. I can't even really talk about what happened in like the last like 176 pages without like being able to spoil everything, but like there's a twist toward the very end that I was so shocked to see, and it was so sad. And like, I don't know how I'm gonna recover from this book because I sobbed. I have sobbed so much reading this. I have not had a book make me cry this much in a very, very long time. Like, it is, oh my God, like I can't even, I can't talk about this without wanting to cry, and I don't want to cry anymore, but oh God. Okay, so this was for my Wheel of D20 picks to read a book that was historical. This is placed just after the events of World War II. It is so fucking good. It is so fucking good. I, like, seriously, if you like to read books that are about the World War II era, definitely pick this one up. It is so easy to fly through for one. It's a fairly short book. It's 353 pages along with a lot of bonus content. There is a historical note from the author Monica Hesse, and then there's behind the scenes content, which basically includes a author Q&A, an annotated excerpt, and even a discussion guide, because I think in a lot of ways you could use this for specifically like if you're taking a Holocaust literature class like my high school used to actually have. This would be a really, really great book for any Holocaust lit class, because what's interesting and something that Monica Hesse mentions in the historical note is that not a lot of books that focus on World War II talk about the things that happen after the war. Everything that you basically read, the documentaries, the books that are on World War II, they go up to basically the end of the war and when the concentration camps are opened up and people are released. They don't talk about the weeks and months following that and all of the issues surrounding around that, which I think is what makes this so heartbreaking, is that you're seeing so much of the after effects of these prisoners that were involved in the war. It is stunning. Absolutely stunning. I feel like I need to now go look at Monica Hesse's other work, because this is apparently her 3rd book and I had never heard of her before this, so I definitely need to go find her other books because it was just amazing. So with that said, basically that's it for my D20 reads for right now. I'm basically gonna have to now fast forward you guys to when I get to my last one for D20 for this month. So I have 3 of them done. I am more than likely going to be able to get my D20 reads done for this month, which is super awesome. I'm so happy with that. I will talk to all you guys when I have got to start with The Last Wish, which is my last book for D20. Hey guys, so it's going on 10 o'clock right now, and I want to quickly do this clip just because I have already had Oscar come in here after having had filmed for almost an hour, and he wants me out. So basically I'm just going to quickly update you guys with where I'm at with my books. So I did start The Last Wish for this. This is my last Wheel of D20 book for a book that Robert picked. And so far I am about 200 and some pages into it. So far I love this. It is absolutely amazing. I don't know what I was so worried about, because genuinely I was worried about at first, like the fact that it was going to be translated from Polish, and so I didn't know, especially with it being high fantasy, if it was going to like read well at all. Good God, I was literally worried about nothing. Like, this book is amazing. It is very fun. I love Geralt already. I like his personality, and I definitely see why a lot of people seem to really like him. And it's so cool to see that, like, this is a story where it is basically its own book with, like, little short stories here and there of his journeys, but they're very sequential. And there's even points where, like, we kind of like jump back and forth, because there's a main plot going on where at the beginning we see him after he's gone through a lot of the journeys he's already been through, and there's like this one big thing where he goes on the big journey, which I think is going to be what goes into the Sword of Destiny. But then there's like snippets of like these other things, that these battles he's come across, these creatures he's killed. And another very interesting thing that I do not know if people have mentioned at all, and if it wasn't something that you were supposed to mention, but I'm going to mention it anyway because I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about with this. There are points in some of the stories that go on in The Witcher where it feels like very well-known, like, fairy tales are brought up. So, and I'm talking like you would recognize them in the sense of like, if you're a Disney fan, you would recognize these stories because the stories that Disney created basically were off of the actual older fairy tales that were from different parts of the world. So for instance, there's a story that essentially feels very much like Beauty and the Beast. There's a story involving a character who feels very much like Snow White. I think I just came across a story where it may have been something similar to Shrek, or at least the idea of a character who starts off where like they have this curse on them where every time at a certain time of the day they turn out to be this monster, but then like after, you know, they find true love, they turn it out to be, you know, beautiful or whatever. Like, very reminiscent of that. I don't know what fairy tale that's supposed to be a part of, but it's so interesting how, whether or not it was intentional for Andrzej Sapkowski to include these fairy tales involved in this story, he's done a remarkable job of looking into them because they all have this theme of basically being that nothing is really as it seems. And that's kind of the main crux of this story, is that essentially not everything is as it seems. Good is not always fully good. Evil is not always fully evil. There is so much more nuance to things than meets the eye. And I really appreciate how the fairy tales, if it was drawn from fairy tales, are included in this because I feel like it really adds to that. It's just so fascinating how I was able to pick out those things within these stories because they had very similar things to do with the fairy tales I know and love. So I'm curious whether or not fans of The Witcher who've read the books have noticed that, because I know that one of the stories gets mentioned in I think season 2 of the Netflix series, which I have not watched as of yet. The only reason I know that is because I talked to my mother, who recently watched the second season of The Witcher. But it's just so interesting how that is something I have never heard anyone talk about before in relation to the books, the show, or the games. And I seem to pick that up like immediately. So I am very curious to see whether that is a recurring thing within the rest of the books or if it is reserved for this one in particular, because this book does deal with a lot of the nuance of things within this world. I'm just fascinated. Completely fascinated. Like, this book has got me by the throat, and I am so excited to continue with the series because now that I've read it, I don't want to stop reading them. Like, they're so freaking good. So I already have the Sword of Destiny put onto my April TBR because, good God, I am never going to be able to get through that series if I don't continue it now. So why not just continue? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I feel like right now I can confidently say it's going to be somewhere between a 4 and a 5 star. I feel like it's going to really depend on what exactly happens with the rest of the book because I have less than 150 pages left. So I have a feeling it's going to turn out fine and like I'll just end up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. But I don't know, something could happen where I might, you know, feel like something dragged or whatever and it won't be fully perfect. But who knows? I don't. I'll have to figure that out when I get to it. So I will update you guys again once I have finished The Last Wish. But I am very excited to get through this because once this book gets finished up tomorrow, my Wheel of D20 books for March will be completed, and then I only have to read 3 books for the Wheel of D20 in April. So I'm so far really like getting my reads in for Wheel of D20, and I feel very blessed that I'm like able to keep my reading schedule right now under control because I'm fully caught up with everything. Hey guys, so it is Friday, and like I had said I was going to do, I did finish The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski today. As I said, absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars, was just absolutely amazing. And with this, I have completed my Wheel of D20 books for March of 2022, which is super exciting. So 2 months in a row, I have completed my Wheel of D20 picks, which is super exciting. And that means that in April, I only have to do 3 spins worth of prompts for Wheel of D20, which is super, super exciting. Also, I am going to be continuing this series as the months go on because I was so enamored with this from the very beginning that I can't not, you know, do this. So anyway, that is all I have for really today. I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. Let me know if you've read any of these books down in the comments and what you thought about them. And if you have any other recommendations for me for things that I really seem to like in terms of like if you think I would enjoy them, if you think they've got similar vibes, whatever the case may be, and I will definitely look into them. But thank you all so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys.